Hey everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we'll be talking about the Eater of Worlds influence mapping and how you can get the most out of your maps. I'll be specifically talking about the Eater of Worlds. I think the Eater of Worlds is a superior version to the Searing Exile, and today I'll tell you why. The purpose of this video is to explain how the Eater of Worlds influences work, how to use these influenced maps to your advantage, so you can sell them if you're on trade, or if you're on SSF like me, you can use this to do some target farming. The timestamps are in the video, the presentation will be shared in Google somewhere in the description, and if you enjoy this content, like and subscribe. In today's video, small introduction, I'll talk about the map device, how you can get this thing on there, the Atlas passive points setup that I'm personally using, alter modifiers, and tips and tricks and strategies on how you can, even when you're inside the map, impact and influence the altars to your heart's content, and so you can even make more currency. Alright, let's start with a little bit of an introduction. This is the Eater of Worlds, the guy you see on the right, and he was introduced, this dude over here, in 3.17. He is one of the new endgame bosses, and he is unlocked for endgame mapping. He works very similar to other influences, to other influence maps, which I think back in the day started with Elder and Shaper, then it went to the Conquerors and the Guardians, and what are these other four guys that you need to kill sometimes. And now we have two new ones. We have the Eater of Worlds and the Searing Exile. I'll make a separate video about that guy. In order to get to him, you need to kill 28 map bosses, or at least do 28 maps and spawn his altars, and then you can do the boss fight. This video is not about the boss fight, but it's just a little bit of context. Juicing the maps though with this influence is incredibly rewarding. I think it's incredibly fun, and you get a ton of free juice. And you can pick and choose your difficulty while you are on the map using these altars, which I think is great. Alright, first have a look at the map device. You can see the thingy over here. Now, you may not have this yet if you're watching this video. You may wonder, how do I get this? Well, I'll tell you. The Maven at some point, which you may remember from previous patches, the Maven will spawn. I think it's around tier 7 if I remember correctly. And she will tell you to kill a map boss or open up a map. Basically, she will start a whole quest chain, which requires you to kill bosses all the way up to tier 14 maps. And then after you kill those map monsters, you drop an item that allows you to fight the boss, the big bad boss, the Eater of Worlds. And if you kill him, which the first time around is actually pretty easy because he only has like a fraction of his stats, then you will unlock the influence thing on the map device, which is this blue thing. And the Searing Exile, by the way, works exactly the same way. Talking about the Atlas passive point setup that I'm using, a lot of these things are not necessarily too relevant. It is mostly about the red sections here. We got a cluster over here, a cluster over here, and a cluster over here that I think are absolutely mandatory whenever you're running the Eater of Worlds influence. Alright, let's take a closer look at these nodes. What are you getting if you pick these nodes? It is about the small ones over here. I learned this, by the way, small shout out from the stream from Crouching Tuna. And I'm also having his build that I'm using, so it's great. Looking at these influence monster packs, they have 5% increased pack size. You get 4 of them on the left side. You have also here 4 of them on the right side. And you might think that this only applies to the Eater of Worlds or to the Searing Exile in this case, because after all, that's where they are on the Atlas. However, that's not true. These are generic pack size for influence monster packs, and pack size is just really strong. This means that you get 40% increased pack size in every influenced map. I think this also works for Guardian influence maps or Shaper or Elder influence maps, you know. This should be extremely strong, and you can definitely notice this. And then the last thing over here, this is also incredible. The Shadow of Hunger, a 50% increased chance to find the Eater of Worlds altars in areas. This is straight up a 50% multiplier, because I have been mapping all weekend with this thing enabled and without this thing enabled. You get so many additional altars by having this node available. It is insane, honestly. Like, it is at least 50%. And I think with the multipliers and the increased pack size, it might be even more. The small nodes over here, they give you random Eldritch influenced items, which are just random items with influence on them. This is just as bad as like random Crangled items from last league, or honestly random any influenced items. Alright, and then you are in the map, and in the map these altars are spawning. And there are 3 different modifiers that are spawning in the maps, and you get to make choices between them. There are player modifiers indicated by a certain icon, and these apply to the player and the entire map, including any other league mechanics. So if you are running a bunch of arch nemesis, for example, and you take player modifiers, they also apply to arch nemesis. And we'll get to this, but this is very strong. Then there are map boss modifiers, they only apply to the map boss. And there are eldritch minion modifiers, and they only apply to eldritch minions. And thematically, the Eater of Worlds has got a few things going on as well. You have him and the monsters that he spawns doing a lot of cold and lightning damage and cold and lightning related effects like debuffs, curses and whatnot. He spawns typically the blue currency, meaning the Eater of World currency, and he is weak, or at least he doesn't have additional protections against fire and chaos, which can be relevant if you're struggling a little bit with maps. If you have a fire-based build like, you know, Exploding Arrow, then this might be a lot better to run because he will not get like additional protections against fire. And the same is true for chaos. The Searing Exarch is the exact opposite in that sense. Alright, what I've done is just copy-pasted a whole bunch of player modifiers that I came across and put them on this slide. And if you look at all of these, you will find a bit of a pattern. For example, you can see that there is a chance to be duplicated pretty much across the board with one exception. So you have a whole bunch of rewards and they have a chance to be duplicated. And the types of rewards are gems, scarabs, maps, uniques somewhere maybe, but yes, uniques, basic currency, and I think also eldritch currency, but I'm not sure, not 100% sure. It might be just limited to basic currency. And very importantly, you have this modifier as well, 13% increased quantity of items found in this area, 22% increased rarity. This applies once again to the entire area, to everything that you do within this area, whether it's an abyss, whether it's an arch nemesis, whether it's a boss, it doesn't matter. This applies across the board. So these are extremely strong. However, these player debuffs, they also apply across the board. This isn't just the eldritch monsters that now give you shocked ground. No, it is everything in the map. So be aware of that. What I've done is I've listed everything over here into the positive and negative modifiers. And here you find a decent list, right? You get a chance or increased chance to duplicate the whole thing, right? Maps, gems, scarabs, basic currency and uniques, and overall increased quantity and rarity, which is very strong. However, there are quite a few negative effects as well. For example, he gives you negative defenses per charge, meaning like a frenzy charge or power charges. It gives you flat out minus 40% cold and lightning res. You might be able to handle that, but most builds will not. Nearby enemies gain fizz as extra cold or lightning, which is very painful. Shocked and chilled ground. Random projectiles, very annoying if you're playing explosive arrow like me. If you have this modifier enabled, you simply can't play the map anymore because you can't target your projectiles anymore. They fly all over the screen and it is becoming extremely difficult to kill anything. So this is pretty much a brick for your map. There's a chance that they reflect non-damaging ailments, so those are curses most of the time, and enemy spells hinder you, which might be a problem if you're not immune to hindering. I did the same thing for the Minion Modifiers, and once again you can see a theme here. These are flat chances, or like added chances. A 3% chance to drop an additional gem is just a flat 3% chance. And then you see the type of rewards that you can get, and once again there is the same theme. The positives, what you can get is maps, gems, scarabs, basic currency, uniques, eldritch currency, and eldritch items with implicit. I've already told you these items are bad because you have no control about the implicit, or about the base item. The negative effects also quite severe. Remove charges like power and frenzy charges, curses and debuffs, all sorts of things related to cold and lightning. So if you combine this with minus 40% resistances that you got from your player debuff, and then you got cursed with conductivity, all of a sudden you have, what is that, like 65 or 70% lightning resistance minus lightning res. You're gonna get one shot by any lightning damage at this point. So be very careful what you give these enemies. They drop shock and shield ground, they fire +3 projectiles, they gain 40% spell suppression, they gain movement speed, and they summon grasping vines, once again hindering you. So the theme is relatively similar overall. Last category, the map boss modifiers. Once again, there is a theme. Now, instead of an increased chance to duplicate or a flat chance to drop, these just have a guaranteed number that they drop. So the map boss drops 3 additional scarabs, which is great. So I would only take this if you are, let's say, close to completely finalizing the map and you still get an altar, and then you have this option. You know that there aren't that many packs left in the map, right? You know that you maybe only need the boss as a final kill. Then this is a decent note to take, because at least you get 3 more additional scarabs. But if you get this option at the start, and you also get the option at the start of the map where the minions can drop either like uniques or gems maybe, but especially scarabs, right? You should always take that one if you can handle the debuff. That would be one of my main advices here. Once again, map boss modifiers, there is the same thing that are positive: maps, gems, scarabs, basic currency and uniques. However, there's a small interesting change here. The eldritch currency, the boss is capable of dropping the good ones, meaning the exalted orb, that's the exalted orb, the chaos orb and the annulment orb. And these are extremely useful for crafting. Now, there are plenty of videos out there already for crafting, so, you know, check those out, I guess. But if you want to know how you get these currencies, you should give the map bosses the eldritch currency guaranteed drop thing, because he will drop the good currencies. The monsters, the regular minions, the regular monsters, they do not drop these things. They only drop like the lesser crafting materials. And once again, he drops eldritch items, wouldn't take those. The negatives: extra fizz, cold and lightning, which can be very painful. It covers you in frost. It might cover you in something that shocks or something, but I haven't encountered that. They shock and they might chill, but once again, didn't encounter that. Elemental penetration as a whole, that includes fire. Max life as energy shield, which is just giving them basically 50% extra HP. That also regenerates, so, you know, make sure you can handle that. They gain resistances 50% to cold and lightning, so if you're a fire-based build like me, this is not a problem at all. And they gain fizz damage reduction. Once again, for me, not a problem, but this might be annoying for your build. Finally, some tips and tricks. The idea, I would say, is that you try to match the modifiers to increase the reward. So what you can try and do is increase both the duplication and the flat drop chance from minions. And if you combine those two and you have, for example, both of them in the scarabs department, you can get what I have over here, right? You can see that these minions, I killed a bunch of minions here. They've been dropping scarabs. And not only that, I've also taken the duplication, and now you see I have a double gilded elder scarab and a double polished sulfite scarab. And this is a great combination, honestly. There are a few other things as well that you can do. I already told you a little bit that you should take into account, if you're min-maxing, that is, what point in the map you are, how many percentage of the map you still need to clear. Because at the start of the map, I would say the minion modifiers are much stronger because you got so many minions left to kill, meaning that you can get so many scarabs or whatever you're farming here. However, if you're getting close to the end of the map, where the boss is in let's say most cases, now it becomes more valuable to take the map boss modifiers because there aren't that many minions anymore, and at least the map boss is a guaranteed drop. So that might be something that you want to take into account. Similarly, what you can do if you have a map where you can easily get access to the boss, you can block, for example, the boss rewards, because the things are random, right? You get either a boss modifier, a minion modifier, or a player modifier. However, if you kill the boss, now you cannot get the boss modifiers anymore. It is deterministic in that sense. So if you kill the boss, every altar that spawns after the boss will now only give you a minion and a player modifiers. So you can make it more deterministic in that sense. And finally, what is not on the slide is that quantity of the maps really matters. I have juiced my maps up to like 130% quantity, and I've also ran them with maybe 40 or 50% quantity, and the difference is huge. It's absolutely huge. I have gotten over 15 altars in one single map, whereas if you got like 40 or 50% quantity, you get maybe 5, maybe. And if you don't take the note that give you 50% additional altars, sometimes you run maps you don't get one at all. So the difference is absolutely massive. Just juice the maps as much as you can, because the more juice, the more altars, and the more rewards ultimately. And finally, of course, be aware of which negative modifiers you cannot run. The random projectiles for explosive arrow, that's very painful. But ultimately, this is just a small example of my inventory after running just one map. You can see that I was farming scarabs and currency here, and a little bit of uniques as well, because that just popped up. This is pretty common actually. And you can make a lot of money with this strategy if you execute it well. And if you're willing to do min-max and like read, you know, if you're willing to read the things. If you want to speed farm, you can just look at this list of negative modifiers that I presented here. And if you can take these negative modifiers and you're comfortable with them, you can just take the minions every time and just don't read anything. Just look at the icon, click the minions, and then keep zooming. Because you know you can take the negative modifiers. In my case, I have been doing that as well as a strategy. It works perfectly fine. But ultimately, the min-max strategy yields so many more rewards because you can combine the different scarabs, for example, which results in like these cute little loot explosions, right? Which we all love. Alright guys, this was it. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you like this content and if it was any useful. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one, which is the Searing Exarch. See you soon.